This video here is about Terrence Howard and his philosophy. Who is Terrence Howard, you probably ask? Well, he's not known for being a philosopher. He's actually an American actor. There's something on Oxford University called the Oxford Union Society, where they have a lot of guest speakers, and Terrence Howard was there in 2015. I think maybe it was last month or something. He was on Joe Rogan podcast, the famous Joe Rogan podcast, where he actually for 3 hours told and spoke of his visions of the world, and how well, his unique vision and understanding of the world, which gave up. It was a lot of controversial podcasts. He's ridiculed all over the YouTube, where that's my domain. I'm a YouTuber, but he's ridiculed for being a pseudoscientist of some sort, and that he's totally insane or legitimately insane. I've seen videos about that. But there's also other kinds of video which talk about Terrence Howard being some kind of a super genius that understand the world as very few does. And at the Oxford address, Terrence Howard even, I don't know if he compares, but he mentioned himself and his thinking, and compares his thinking to that of Leonardo da Vinci. So he's kind of in the big league here. But I'm not gonna take sides here. That's not my issue. Why I'm doing this video to vindicate Terrence Howard and call him a super genius. I'm not gonna do that. But I'm not gonna be on the other half of this two-edged sword, one could say, and call him a pseudoscientist or completely insane, or label him like somebody like that. Because let's be fair, Terrence Howard has not done anything wrong, really. He has just voiced his opinion. I'm not gonna judge Terrence Howard if he's insane or not. He has a wife, he has kids, he managed to have a career, and he probably managed to have a career still. He works for a living as an actor and so forth, sponsor deals or whatever. He doesn't seem completely out there. He just has another view of things. Is he a pseudoscientist? I'm not gonna judge that. That's why I think it's interesting to do this video, because I will show you philosophical lines of thinking, both that's still here in modern times, but also from ancient times. It reaches all the way back to ancient times. Philosophical positions where Terrence Howard actually could be right. That's exciting in itself, because this is a philosophy video. This is not a scientific video. I'm not going to debunk Terrence Howard's way of thinking. There's plenty of video out there. You want to debunk all his theories, you can do that. I rather talk about Terrence Howard in a much grander perspective of within the philosophy of science, actually. That there are possibilities within philosophy of science where Terrence Howard is right, and that I think is interesting. And I'm not gonna come with any conclusion saying, you see here, now, you see Terrence Howard was right. That's not my general idea with this, my line of thinking in this video. It's more like an analyze his position, if he has one. He doesn't call himself a philosopher. He hasn't made a philosophical address at this Oxford University. He just staples his view on science and his view on how the world is. But that is a philosophy in a way. That's when you other how the world is, especially when there's a position, clearly position that says the world is like this, he turns the sword around and shows another side of the sword. I think you guys out there are familiar with all the name calling there are online on YouTube, Facebook and so forth. And that's why I will refrain from this name calling, especially in the case of Terrence Howard, since I've seen he's no threat to anybody, and he's not a threat to science, because science does their thing, Terrence Howard does his thing, and they asked him to speak at this Oxford University to have a multiple different kind of speakers. They invited Terrence Howard to speak at this Oxford University. They probably not thought that he would say stuff like that, but that's his provocative. That's he's allowed to do that. That's freedom of speech. So I will refrain from that name calling, and I will also refrain from calling anybody anything, because I don't do name calling. I'm not sure sometimes if I will even call myself a philosopher. I think I am a philosopher, but I don't like the labels. So I will refrain from that. I will try to do what philosophy from ancient time is trying to do, to understand. It's called the love of wisdom. Now I would like to briefly come into why I do not come with specific examples from Terrence Howard's address at Oxford University. It's simply because I'm not sure I really understand him or understand them, which is interesting. Do I not understand Terrence Howard because he speaks utterly nonsense? Is he doing a word salad? There's no question of it that Terrence Howard knows a lot of words, a lot of big conceptual words. Some you probably have to look up. He knows them, but yeah, he's slicing them together like it's a kind of a word salad. I don't know, and that's the interesting thing here. Why don't I understand it? Am I too dumb to understand them? Or is it utter nonsense? Or is there something else going on that has something to do with what is knowledge? And that is why I would like to go into ancient skepticism. Pyrrhonian skepticism, which is a position from the philosopher Pyrrho or Pyrrho, who lived after the time of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. He was a soldier in Alexander the Great's army. So he went out with Alexander the Great on his conquest, and he saw a multitude of different civilizations who had different truths. Pyrrho saw there was different truth out there, and he started thinking, which is the real truth? We have our truth, they have their truth. Over here they have another truth. What should I do? What is the real truth? How can I understand what the real truth is? At some point he came to the revelation that he should suspend all kind of judgment. The suspension of judgment, because he should remain skeptical about which is the real truth, this one or this one. Suspension of judgment is called epoche, and this epoche really gave these ancient skeptics, these ancient skeptic philosophers, that they gave him peace of mind, which is called ataraxia, and it gave him a sense of happiness, which is eudaimonia. So there is basis for this skepticism in the history of philosophy, which in time also becomes the problem of skepticism within science, within modern science, within modern philosophy. That's always the problem. What does exact knowledge exist? Can we trust exact knowledge, because there's some kind of a problems with knowledge. It's also called the problem of knowledge, where you have the problem of skepticism that comes in, and that goes all the way back to the beginning of this ancient skepticism. We also have Socrates running around in Athens, questioning everybody about their knowledge, and he has a specific point of getting them to acknowledge that they kind of know nothing. Like him, Socrates thought that he didn't really know anything, a no-knowledge position. This is also what Pyho gathers later on for himself, this sort of Socratic skepticism. So it's been there since the beginning. So that means that when confronted with science and confronted with Terrence Howard's version, his correction of science, his correction of the periodic table, his correction of mathematics, well, that's another point of view. So which one is true? Well, strict scientists will just say science is right, Terrence Howard is wrong. But within skepticism, which is philosophy, which is thought about the world, there is basics for that exact knowledge is something peculiar. Now, Agrippa's trilemma, you have basically three, there's a circular argumentation, there's a regressive argumentation, there's a dogmatic argument. That's the trilemma here, where first of all the problem of knowledge, that if you try to argument for something, you can get into a circular argument in which proof of some proposition presupposes the truth of that very proposition. There's also a regressive argumentation, where you have the regressive argument in which each proof requires further proof, and that goes on for infinity and ad infinitum. It goes on forever. You can keep finding another proof for this proof, and then another proof for this proof. And that's the last part of this Agrippa's trilemma, is the dogmatic argument, which rests on accepted precepts, which are merely asserted rather than defended. So this is a kind of Agrippa's trilemma in a nutshell. So this shows that there are problems with exact knowledge. Within modern philosophy of science, there is the problem of knowledge, the problem of skepticism, and there's a specific variation of skepticism called relativism, and relativism is a sort of skepticism where, let me just read something out now. There are many radical, different yet equally valid ways of knowing the world, with science being just one of them. But it has also something to do with relativism. Means that something may be relevant here, but not relevant here. It is relevant within a specific context. This is where science is relevant to science and the scientific method, but within another field of knowledge it might not be relevant. If well-informed, honest and intelligent people are able to resolve conflicts of opinion, we should accept that all parties to such disputes could be right, and their conflicting positions would have equal claims to the truth, each according to their own perspective of point of view. That disagreement is therefore faultless. Social constructivism, sometimes also called social constructionism. I'm not gonna come deep into the various differences here. I'm just gonna call it social constructivism here. It basically says that all science is, you can say, relevant to social dynamics, social conditions the scientist and the scientist experiment within a social construct, within a social situation, a social milieu, and that is how science is constructed. So that's also a form of skepticism. You could say that, well, true science depends on social dynamics and social conditions, which are social and not always scientific. So there's always going to be some problem with science. I read a book about social constructivism, I think it was last year or something. But anyways, a specific point there I kind of liked is that some scientists came to an old tribe in Africa or South America or something. It's not the point here. But they had a tree construction, a tree building of sorts that collapsed, and people died on that tree construction. And then the scientists, they investigated how this accident occurred, and they found out that it had termites. So they tried to explain with their scientific language to this old tribe that has been kind of uncivilized for ages, that it was termites that was the cause for these people that died on these tree constructions. And the tribe was like, we don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense. No, they died because of how the stars were at that specific point, and when they were born, that means they died because of how the persons were. They were meant to die. Fairly unscientific way to view things, but within the social relevant context of the tribe, this is true knowledge. And they don't understand our scientific knowledge because it's not relevant to them. So this is an interesting discussion within the science of philosophy of science, I'm sorry. So this also relevance to the discussion on how to maybe understand or look at Terrence Howard's and the way he ordered and corrects the periodic table and mathematics as he does in this Oxford University address. The last thing I would like to address here is the point of anti-realism. Now, anti-realism, if you take realism, realism means that we live in a world that we are dependent on. That means that how we view the world means that the truth we come up with are dependent on the real world, physical laws and so forth. These are truth. We are dependent on the world. There's a correlation between the real world and how we think about the world. But then there's anti-realism, which states that you can't see things like that because human thoughts, human knowledge, human science and whatever are always independent on the real world, because there ain't no real world out there. That's only how we view the world. So it's always dependent on how we think. There's no real world out there. This is anti-realism, and you can say within that context, Terrence Howard's way of viewing the world, you can't say that's not the real world, because the real world is there. Well, within anti-realism, there's no real world even exist there. There's only the human mind and how we specifically view the thing. So you can also put a skeptical stance in there that makes sense when speaking about how to understand Terrence Howard. Here at the end, I would like to go into something. And that's what I call the three stances in philosophy. I actually made a whole video about these three basic stances in philosophy. I'll put links to the end at the end of this video. You can watch. So stay tuned for the end of the video. There will be a link to a more elaborate video on these three basic stances in philosophy. we have a transcendental stance, we have a rational stance and a skeptical stance. The transcendental stance use a vocabulary, a terminology from, you could say, religion and transcendental philosophy, metaphysics. These kind of vocabulary uses transcendental, metaphysics, and all these kind of languages, terminology within that field. This is a view of the world. Or you can have a rational stance which uses a terminology like logic and scientific facts and so forth. So that's a way of view the world that is rational. You use the word rational, reason, logic, science, facts and so forth. And you have a skeptical stance that's skeptical about both the other stances, saying science, well, is probably right, I don't know. Transcendental, yeah, there could be something that lies beyond a God, I don't know. I remain skeptical. That's ancient skepticism for you right here, a skeptical stance. So how to place Terrence Howard? Well, Terrence Howard uses a lot of language from the transcendental stance, like something is hidden and secret. He found out something that lies above, under. Things are different than we think. It's something that lies independent on our mind and how we think and so forth. But he also uses a lot of words from science and try to kind of mix them up in some form. So Terrence Howard must be some kind of here. He's not over in the skeptical stance because he believes and he says this is the truth. So he's not in any way being skeptical. Although this is the interesting point for me, that in order to kind of give him say that he could be right, you have to be, as a viewer, as an audience for his understanding, you could lie here at the skeptical stance in order to understand Terrence Howard. I don't like extremes, and that's extreme within calling a guy like Terrence Howard that all he's saying that's just a pseudoscience. We put him in a box, an extreme box called he's a pseudoscientist. He's dangerous. He's a flat earther or something. He's probably not right scientifically, Terrence Howard. That's what I think. Just like flat earthers, they're not scientifically right. But I'm still interested in how they view the world. By the way, I don't think Terrence Howard is a flat earther. So excuse me for putting him in a box with flat earthers. Again, that's labeling. I don't like labeling. But if you put him at pseudoscience, then that's the opposite point. If you take an extreme, that could be scientism. I don't like scientism either. Scientism is a position where you think all science is the only way to the world, that if all language, within all language and terminology and how you view the world, it can only be scientific. It can only be through science. That's the extreme version of this is scientism. There's no place to religion. There's no place to view the world as maybe something that's fluented, that's processual within a societal world where society plays a big role in how we understand things. That's where the social constructivism comes in, I also think, and maybe relativism. So my conclusion is that a skeptic philosopher, the ancient skeptics, they were right in a sense to be skeptic about all kinds of knowledge, and one must also always have its ear point on different truth and different understandings, like Terrence Howard. And that's my conclusion with this video. Let's not call Terrence Howard all kinds of things. Let's listen to what he's saying and try to understand him. And if we don't if we don't understand him, that's fine. We don't understand him. But stop the judgment. Stop judgment. My conclusion with this video that within Terrence Howard, who I don't really understand, I don't know if he's right or not. He could be crazy as a mother, or he could be a super genius. I really don't know, and I really don't want to judge in this video. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you, well, learned something or something. I don't know. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're more skeptical or something. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next.